Welcome back to the session of the Hindu newspaper analysis for UPSC Civil Services Examination. Today we will discuss only three issues. The first issue is related to Chabahar Port. India gets 6-month waiver for Chabahar Port. Second issue is related to role of artificial intelligence in education. Third issue is related to integration of princely states in India. So let's discuss all the issues in detail. In this lecture, we will discuss about Chabahar Port. India gets 6-month exemption from US sanctions for Chabahar port in Iran. Why news? India has received a waiver on United States sanction against Iran Chabahar port for 6 months. India and Iran signed an MOU in 2015 to jointly develop the Shahid Baheshti port at Chabahar. Chabahar port helping India access to market of Afghanistan, the Central Asian state, and Russia. India's sanction-related issues emerged due to Western sanctions against Iran. This is graphical representation of connection between Chabahar Port and Indian Port. About Chabahar Port. Chabahar Port is a deep water port in Sistan, Balochistan, Iran, on Makran coast near the Gulf of Oman, outside the Strait of Hormuz. It is Iran's only deep sea port with direct open ocean access, providing India secure and direct access for large cargo ships. It has two main terminals, Shahid Baheshti and Shahid Kalantri. India actively involved in developing the Shahid Baheshti terminal. Development and Management. The Chabahar Agreement 2016 was signed between India, Iran, and Afghanistan to establish the International Transport and Transit Corridor (IPGL) through its subsidiary India Port Global Chabahar Free Zone (IPGCFZ) took over Chabahar port operations in December 2018. Operational performance. Chabahar port has transshipped wheat and pulses from India to Afghanistan, facilitated supply of malthan environment-friendly pesticide to Iran in 2021, and supported humanitarian aid during the COVID-19 pandemic. What is the significance of Chabahar port for India? Number one, alternative trade route. Chabahar port provides India an alternative route to Afghanistan and Central Asia, bypassing Pakistan. It reduces dependence on traditional choke points like the Strait of Hormuz. Number two, ensuring connectivity. It improves access to Iran and INSTC via shorter route from Kandla port. INSTC means International North-South Transport Corridor. Number three, economic benefit. Chabahar port enhance India trade with Central Asia and Afghanistan, diversify routes, and enhance access to Russia, Europe, Iran, and Afghanistan. It led to economic growth of India. Chabahar port, a key INSTC node, link the Indian Ocean to Northern Europe, cutting trade cost by 30% and transit time by 40%. Number four, humanitarian assistance. This port serves as a crucial entry point for humanitarian aid and reconstruction in Afghanistan. Number five, strategic influence. It strengthens India's strategic presence in the Indian Ocean, counters China's Gwadar Port and Belt and Road Initiative, and enhances anti-piracy capabilities. Conclusion. Chabahar Port is important to India's regional influence, trade, and connectivity ambitions. Its role as a strategic counterweight offers opportunities despite challenges from US sanctions, regional instability, and competing projects. In this lecture, we will discuss artificial intelligence AI benefits in education. Should AI be introduced as part of school curricula? Why news? Recently, the Ministry of Education announced that an artificial intelligence AI curriculum would be introduced from class 3 onwards for the next academic year 2026-27. Earlier in July, the government has launched the Skilling for AI Readiness initiative, under which thousands of CBSE schools will offer AI as a skill subject starting from class 6. ChatGPT, NVIDIA, and other global business giants are investing heavily in AI in India. India AI mission aiming to build an ecosystem for trusted and inclusive AI. Teachers and students use artificial intelligence tools, AI tools, but ethical dilemmas and digital divide challenge meaningful classroom interaction. In this session, we will cover how is AI transforming teaching and learning practices in Indian classroom. Should AI be introduced as part of school curricula? Benefit of AI in education for students. Number one, personalized learning. AI can analyze a student's performance, strength, weakness, and learning style to create customized learning path. Number two, intelligent tutoring. AI-powered system can provide personalized support, feedback, and interactive experience to help students. Number three, enhanced accessibility. AI tools like speech recognition and text-to-speech can assist students with disabilities, making education more inclusive. Number four, engaging content. AI can be used to generate smart, engaging learning materials such as summarize, quizzes, and digital textbooks. Number five, timely feedback. AI can offer immediate feedback on assignments, helping students identify areas for improvement for quickly than traditional methods. For educators and administration. Number one, automated administrative tasks. AI can automate time-consuming tasks like attendance tracking, grading, and scheduling, free up teachers to focus on more impactful activities like lesson planning and student engagement. Number two, actionable insights. AI-driven analytics can help teachers and administrators to identify patterns and trends in student performance, inform instructional strategies and policy decisions. Number three, enhanced professional development. AI can support the professional growth of teachers by recommending personalized resources and courses. Challenges and concerns related to AI. Number one, ethical concern and biases. AI algorithms can sometimes inherit biases present in the data they are trained on, which can affect the learning experience and outcomes for certain student groups. Number two, data privacy. The use of AI in education involves collecting large amount of student data, raising concern about data security and privacy. Number three, decline in critical thinking. Over reliance on artificial intelligence can potentially reduce students' analytical and critical thinking skill. Number four, digital divide. Access to the necessary technology and infrastructure for AI powered tool may be limited, lead to inequalities between students. Number five, teacher training. Effective integration of AI in education require comprehensive training for educators to ensure they can use the tools effectively and ethically. Government initiatives. Number one, National Education Policy (NEP) 2020. National Education Policy 2020 promotes integrating AI in the curriculum at various educational levels. Number two, government initiatives. Initiatives like the India AI Mission demonstrate the government's commitment to advancing AI adoption, including in education. Conclusion. Responsible regulation. The need for ethical guidelines and balanced regulation is crucial to maximize the benefit of artificial intelligence while mitigating its risk. Preparing for future. AI is changing future job skill requirement, making it crucial for education to adapt and foster adaptability and problem solving skill in students. Today is National Unity Day. So, in this lecture, we will discuss the story of integration of princely states. Why in news? Today is National Unity Day and 150th birth anniversary of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, India's Iron Man. Various activities such as parades, run for unity, cultural events, and a pledge to uphold India's unity conducted on this day. The day celebrates Patel's historic role in unifying more than 560 princely states after independence and promoting peace and integrity. National Unity Day 2025 inspire every citizen to uphold India's unity and diversity and strengthen the foundation of a secure, harmonious nation. Historical background of National Unity Day. The idea of National Unity Day was first introduced in 2014 by the Government of India to honor Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the country's first Deputy Prime Minister and Home Minister. After independence in 1947, Patel faced challenges of integrating over 560 princely states, covering nearly 40% of India's territory and population, into one united nation. Under the Indian Independence Act of 1947, these states could choose to India or Pakistan or staying independent. Sardar Patel used diplomacy, persuasion, and decisive measures to integrate princely states. By August 15, 1947, almost all states had acceded to India. His leadership saved India from fragmentation and laid the foundation for a strong and unified democracy. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was born on 31st October 1875 in Nadiad, Gujarat. Integration of princely states after independence. Introduction. Indian Independence Act of 1947 gave princely states an option to join the India and Pakistan or continue as an independent sovereign state. At that time, more than 500 princely states have covered 48% of area of pre-independent India and constituted 28% of its population. These kingdoms were not legally part of British India, but in reality, they were completely subordinate to the British Crown. For the British, these states were the necessary allies to keep in check the rise of other colonial powers and nationalist tendencies in India. Accordingly, the princes were given autonomy over their territories, but the British have right to appoint ministers and get military support as and when required. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, India's first deputy prime minister and the home minister, with the assistance of VP Menon, the secretary of Ministry of the State, was given the formidable task of integrating the princely states. Patel convinced all princes to join India. He also introduced the concept of privy purse, a payment to be made to royal families for their agreement to merge with India. Bikaner, Baroda, and a few other states from Rajasthan were the first ones to join the union. Integration of some states given next. Number 1, Travancore. Travancore was southern Indian maritime state, which was strategically important for maritime trade and was rich in both human and mineral resources. It was one of the first princely states to refuse accession to the Indian Union and question the Congress leadership of the nation. By 1946, the Diwan of Travancore, Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer, declared his intention of forming an independent state of Travancore. Sir C.P. Iyer is also said to have had secret ties with UK government, who were in support of an independent Travancore because they hoped that they would get exclusive access to a mineral called monazite that would support to Britain in nuclear arms race. He stuck in his position till as late as July 1947. He changed his mind soon after he faced an assassination attempt by a member of Kerala Socialist Party. On July 30, 1947, Travancore joined India. Number 2, Jodhpur. Jodhpur, the Rajput princely state, despite having a Hindu king and a large Hindu population, strangely had a tilt toward Pakistan. Young and inexperienced Jodhpur Prince Hanwant Singh thought that he may get a better deal from Pakistan since his state was connected with the Pakistan. It is said that Jinnah given Maharaja signed blank sheet of paper to list all the demand. He also offered him free access to the Karachi port to arms manufacturing and importing along with military and agrarian support. Seeing the risk in the border state acceding to Pakistan, Patel immediately contacted the prince and offered him sufficient benefits. Patel assured him that number one, importing arm would be allowed. Number two, Jodhpur would be connected to Kathiawar by rail. Number three, India would supply grain to it during famines. On 11th August 1947, Maharaja Hanwant Singh, King of Jodhpur, signed the instrument of accession and the state of Jodhpur was integrated into the Indian Dominion. Number 3. Bhopal. Bhopal also wished to declare independence. Here a Muslim Nawab, Himadullah Khan, was ruling over a majority Hindu population. He opposed the Congress rule and was a close friend of Muslim League. He had made clear his decision to Mountbatten to attain independence. However, the letter wrote back to him stating that no rule could run away from the dominion closest to him. By July 1947, the prince became aware of the large number of princes who had acceded to India and decided to join India. Number 4. Hyderabad. Hyderabad was the largest and richest of all princely states, covered a large portion of the Deccan Plateau. Nizam Mir Usman Ali was presiding over a largely Hindu population in this princely state. He wanted independent state and blatantly refused to join the Indian Dominion. He drew support from Jinnah, and tussle over Hyderabad grew stronger over time. Both Dominions' request and threat from Patel and other mediators failed to change the mind of Nizam, who kept expanding his army by importing arms from Europe. Things took a turn for the worse when armed fanatics called Rajakars started violence targeted at Hyderabad's Hindu residents. The Congress government decided to make a more decisive turn after the Lord Mountbatten resignation in June 1948. On September 30, 1948, Indian troops were sent to Hyderabad under Operation Polo. After a 4-day armed encounter, The Indian army gained full control of the state and Hyderabad became the integral part of India. Later, Nizam was made the governor of state of Hyderabad. Number 5. Junagadh. Junagadh, situated on the southwest end of Gujarat, also did not accede to Indian Union by August 15, 1947. It contained a large Hindu population ruled by Nawab Muhammad Mahabad Khanji III. On September 15, 1947, Nawab Muhammad Khanji chose to accede to Pakistan, arguing that Junagadh adjoined Pakistan by sea. India believed that if Junagadh was permitted to accede to Pakistan, communal tensions already simmering in Gujarat would worsen and refused to accept the Nawab's choice of accession. The government pointed out that the state was 80% Hindu and called for a plebiscite to decide the question of accession. India cut off supplies the fuel and coal to Junagadh, stopped air and postal links, sent troops to the frontier, and occupied the principalities of Mongrol and Babriwad that had acceded to India. Pakistan agreed to discuss a plebiscite subject to the withdrawal of Indian troops, a condition India rejected. On 26 October, the Nawab and his family fled to Pakistan following clashes with the Indian troops. Before leaving, the Nawab had emptied the state treasury for its cash and securities. On November 7, 1947, Junagadh's court, facing collapse, invited the government of India to take over the state's administration. The Diwan of Junagadh, Sir Shah Nawaz Bhutto, the father of more famous Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, decided to invite the government of India to intervene. The government of India accepted the invitation of Diwan to intervene. A plebiscite was conducted in February 1948, which went almost unanimously in favor of accession to India. Junagadh became a part of the Indian state of Saurashtra until November 1, 1956, when Saurashtra became part of Bombay state. In 1960, Bombay state was split into linguistic state of Maharashtra and Gujarat, in which Junagadh was located, and since then Junagadh is part of Gujarat. Number 6. Kashmir. Kashmir was a princely state with a Hindu king ruling over a predominant Muslim population, which had remained reluctant to join either of the two dominions. The case of this strategically located kingdom was not just very different, but also one of toughest, as it had important international boundaries. The ruler of Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, had offered a proposal of stand-still agreement to both India and Pakistan, pending a final decision on the state's accession. Pakistan entered into the stand-still agreement, but it invaded the Kashmir from north with an army of soldiers and tribesmen carrying weapons. In the early hours of 24th October 1947, thousands of tribal Pathans swept into the Kashmir. The Maharaja of Kashmir appealed to India for help. He sent his representative Sheikh Abdullah to Delhi to ask for India's help. On 26th October 1947, Maharaja Hari Singh fled from Srinagar and arrived in Jammu, where he signed an instrument of accession of Jammu and Kashmir instead. According to the terms of document, the Indian jurisdiction would extend to the external affairs, communication, and defense. After the document was signed, Indian troops were airlifted into the state and fought alongside the Kashmir. On 5th March 1948, Maharaja Hari Singh announced the formation of an interim popular government with Sheikh Mohammad Abdullah as the Prime Minister. In 1951, the State Constituent Assembly was elected. It met for the first time in Srinagar on 31st October 1951. In 1952, the Delhi Agreement was signed between Prime Ministers of India and Jammu and Kashmir, giving special position to the state under Indian constitutional framework. On 6th February 1954, the Jammu and Kashmir Constituent Assembly ratified the accession of the state to the Union of India. The President subsequently issued the Constitution Order under Article 370 of the Constitution, extending the Union Constitution to state with some exceptions and modifications. As per Section 3 of Jammu and Kashmir Constitution, Jammu and Kashmir is and shall be an integral part of the Union of India. On 5th of August 2019, the President of India promulgated the Constitution Order 2019. The order abrogated the special status accorded to Jammu and Kashmir under the provision of Article 370, whereby provisions of the constitution which were applicable to other states were not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir. So thanks for watching this video.